Welcome everyone, Adam Lafacci, your moderator here, and thank you so much for joining us for today's Will to Adorn conference, where we'll be exploring the diversity of African American identities as expressed through the cultural aesthetics and traditional arts of the body, dress, and adornment. If you haven't had an opportunity to yet, we hope that you'll take a moment to introduce yourself in the forums on the conference website. And here's a quick look at what those introduction pages look like. But while you're here with us, we hope that you'll use the questions or comments box on the left side of the screen to chat with us throughout the conference today. And you can feel free to enter in your comments and questions as we move through all of the sessions. We'll be taking note of any content-related questions that you have, and we'll try to circle back around to as many of those as possible. But if you don't get an immediate response, don't worry, we'll be taking note of them, and we'll definitely try to address them all. Also, if you have any technical questions, you can type those into the box, and I'll respond to you privately to get those sorted out as quickly as possible. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me in that questions or comments box if you're having any tech issues. If for any reason you get bumped out of the online room or you're not able to contact me, you can email our support team at smithsonian@learningtimes.com, and they'll work with you to get you back into the online room as quickly as possible. You'll also notice that we are offering live closed captioning at the bottom of the screen. We hope that's useful for you. But if for any reason it's distracting, you can also click to turn off the caption option at your location. There are a few other ways to be engaged with our conference today, and we do hope you'll take advantage of all of them. For starters, we're offering badges for those of you who are just here to participate with us today. So if you're here now, congratulations, you've already won the participant badge. And you'll receive an email with information on how to access and see that, though you'll see a preview of it here on your screen. Also, we're offering a social networker badge, and you can check back on the conference site to see what you need to do to earn that. But we're hoping that you'll join us in the Twitterverse, and if you tweet at least 5 times, you will earn the social networker badge for our conference today. And if you tweet, please do so at #WillToAdorn to be part of the conversation. Also, we're offering a number of additional resources on our Pinterest page, and we hope you'll take a moment to check that out either during the conference today or at the end so that you can continue to reference it as you move forward past the live conference today. And here's a quick look at our conference schedule for today. And as you can see, we have several sessions throughout the day. We're in the middle of the Will to Adorn overview, and we hope that you'll consider joining us for all of these following sessions. But if for any reason you missed them, don't worry, we're recording them all, and we'll make those recordings available on the conference website. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to Dr. Diana Njai, and she can take it away from here.
Thank you so much, Adam. My name is Diana Njai, and I'm an anthropologist and curator here at the Smithsonian. And I'm going to introduce some of the ideas about community culture, the arts of adornment, and identity. I'm here with my colleague, Sally Vanderwater, and we're going to talk about this project and hopefully excite you with some of the things that you can do in your own place. The Will to Adorn is a project of the Smithsonian Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage. At the center, we work hand in hand with researchers, artists, and culture keepers around the world to identify, document, and share with others the traditions that are meaningful and that help to define and express community life. Among many things that we do, starting from our research, we produce the annual Smithsonian Folklife Festival. We also collect, record, produce music and spoken word that you can hear through Folkways recordings. We have a wonderful archive of sound, image, and fieldwork, and we engage with partners in conversations around cultural policy, the guidelines for institutions that deal with culture. So the Will to Adorn is one of our projects. It's a collaborative research and educational initiative looking at African American culture and identities through the arts of dress and adornment. So our big question in this project is, how do we express our identities through the way that we adorn ourselves from head to toe? What's the connection between the arts of dress and community? We are so excited to be having this conversation with all of you who are listening in and showcase the wonderful work that our community partners have been doing all across the United States. And you'll be hearing from them in a little while. So everything starts with cultural autobiography, autobiography being the story of our own lives. How we understand ourselves affects how we understand others. And for the past 3 years that the Will to Adorn project has been researching dress, we've started by telling our own stories about dressing. It's what we encourage everybody in the project to do, and something that we encourage you to do from wherever you're dialing in. As I said, I'm an anthropologist and started studying the culture of dress over 30 years ago, but I'm also an artist who's loved designing and making things to wear for most of my life. So in the photograph at the top left of this slide, I'm about 2 years old and playing with my friends Sonia and Brenda in Bermuda, where I spent the first few years of my life. I'm wearing a gold bangle, and you see a large version of that here, and that was a symbol that was typical for girls from the Caribbean and was made by my grandfather, who was a goldsmith. He was an artisan of style in the South American country of Guyana. The origins of the bangle, though, are in India, the origin of many Guyanese people, and the bangle became a symbol of people of the Caribbean, wherever their ancestry and wherever they went. So there are many people in New York City, where I spent a lot of my growing up time, also who wore bangles at the time. So my sartorial autobiography, sartorial means the pertaining to dress, like that of all of us, includes the different roles and cultural occupational communities to which I belong. The words of folklorist, writer Zora Neale Hurston, The Will to Adorn, proved to be an inspiration for the name of the project. She said that the will to adorn is one of the most important characteristics of African American culture. She was speaking about how people in the African American communities that she researched, including her hometown of Eatonville, Florida, were masters of the spoken word. But it applies equally to dress, and I think you can see that Zora Neale herself was quite a dresser. So here are some basic premises and research questions. What does clothing communicate? How do people of African descent in the United States communicate and perform identity through dress? And what are the connected narratives, stories, and chains of connections between people who make and people who dress? So from the way we style our hair and choose what we wear each day, to the occupational virtuosity, the mastery of those who cut and style our hair, create our clothing and accessories. The arts of body adornment are fundamental languages of cultural expression through which we communicate meaning, both where we belong and how we're different from others. We learn and communicate these cultural definitions of ourselves through observing and imitating the styles of dress of others in our communities and creating our own visual expressions of style and body adornment. And some of these are what we would call cultural markers of our links to these communities. They mark us as part of a community. And we're all dress artists and curators of our closets. So the expressive culture of communities of African descent have some things in common as well as differences to other communities of African descendants in North America. In both instances, there are cultural continuities in traditions rooted on the continent of Africa and traditions practiced in the Americas. And we have a photograph of someone braiding here in the Medje village in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And we have a photograph of the grandmother of Allison Janae Hamilton being braided by her sister. And Allison Janae is a photographer and anthropologist, and she took this photograph when she was only about 11 years old. So it's a wonderful photograph, and we can see the influences on African adornment in the United States in the cornrow tradition. For example, that's a skill of braiding that has been passed down through generations to the present day. And the arts of dress and adornment in African American culture are more than simply just statements of personal taste and sense of style, which we all have, but they can also be understood, again, as visual vocabularies of community and individual self-naming, how we present ourselves. And Here we have Daryl Montana, who is a second generation masquerade carnival maker from New Orleans. And we can see the expressions of regional style in some of the clothing and some of the costuming that he's made, and in this case, for social and pleasure clubs in New Orleans. And this is one for whom he's made costumes. And these social and pleasure clubs were very important in maintaining the lives of people in New Orleans throughout history, but also during and in the aftermath of Katrina. Now, clothing also involves displays evoking high status and entitlement, and Scurlock was a photography studio that really showed high status people in the African American community in Washington, D.C. Dress also conveys political expressions of freedom, as in this image from the Diana Davies collection here at the center. One of the early protesters for the civil rights movement. And you can see some of the buttons, also displays of adornment. In modern day, expressions of adornment having to do with political sentiments, the young folks on your right of the screen were celebrating President Obama's inauguration. The young man in the middle was wearing a T-shirt that was expressive of the Black Panther Party that started in Oakland, California, but had a lot of effect in African American communities throughout the country. And the young woman on the very left has earrings made out of buttons that show President Obama, but also on her skirt she's showing the Honorable Marcus Garvey, who was a symbol for many of the move back to Africa. So dress in African American communities convey commitments to a faith, a cause, shared social relationships, identification with heritage, and standards of beauty and appropriateness. And these folks who are policemen and women from New York City are exemplifying faith as well as their occupational culture and what they wear. Dress communicates differing ideas of what's cool and what's appropriate, and some styles reflect other values. Like, for instance, in historically African American colleges and universities, these young men are wearing clothing that puts an emphasis on symbols of college and aspirations to high society. And okay, this is a cover shot from Ebony magazine of President Barack Obama that has many symbols of cool. Can you point out some of them? And you can use your chat to do that. And maybe Sally, you can also mention some that you see.
Great, and so feel free to enter in your thoughts on this photo here on the left side of the screen. We'll highlight some of those responses as they come in. Oh, and I see Sally has jumped in first here.
Yeah, what are some of the symbols of cool? The glasses, right. Osubi Craig, sunglasses, well-tailored suit. Yeah. Dark-colored suit, yeah. The black suit, that's right. Fancy car, pink tie. Getting out of the fly car, that's for sure. And whether it be, we've seen images of many, many ways of being cool. And so I think that this is a good idea. And it says the 25 coolest brothers of all time, black cool. And so this has been a subject that people have looked at. But this is all part of the profiles of dressers and dressing that have to do with identity. So identity, so we're going to go on from here. I love that, Valencia. His overall presence, calm but powerful. That's right. So dress also exemplifies new ways of thinking about gender. And so this is another photograph from Allison Janae Hamilton, who has been documenting well-dressed members of the LGBT community. And so let's go. And expressions of community style, though, may differ greatly. And you can tell perhaps some other symbols. You see the braids here. And again, let's do this one more time. What kinds of things do you see here that exemplify cool?
Great, and so we'll keep an eye on the chat box here as you all share your thoughts. Definitely a great photo. I'm really excited to see what people highlight.
Vivid colors, right. We have some great responses here. Yeah, and New York City pointing out that it may be, well, actually, Ernest, you're from New York, but it's pointing out something. This was taken in New York, so it's part of New York City style as well. So let's go on to the next slide. So performance of dress, and we do perform what we wear, sometimes takes place via what we're calling visual concerts. These are community fashion shows. And these women from the Alfred Street Baptist Church in Alexandria, Virginia, are wearing hats designed by a 98-year-old milliner whose name is May Reeves from Philadelphia. And one of the models here, showing that style is important at any age, on the bottom right is 98-year-old herself. Okay, so the expressive culture of diaspora communities within the United States has both similarities and difference to older communities of African descendants in New York, in North America. In all of these instances, there are cultural continuities and traditions rooted on the continent of Africa, as well as in traditions practiced in the Americas. And I'm just going to point out that the folks here, the gentleman in the middle is from Cape Verde, Manuel Vega. He's wearing a tie made from a pano, a textile from the U.S. Virgin Islands. And the young woman on your right is both Native American and African American, and she's wearing skins as well as a style that she feels express both identities here. So dress communicates belonging and affiliation. And here we see an African American sorority and an African American fraternity. And in both, this is a time when members are being inducted. And what's distinctive about the AKA sisters on the right, can anyone say? That's showing identity. Okay. Well, I hear some folks in the background saying that's the pink and green, and on the left, the fraternity colors of Omega Psi Phi, the purple and yellow, and in the background are the new inductees who are not yet wearing their gold and purple. But these are all very important bonding symbols. So sometimes, though, the same article of clothing will have different meanings. For example, the gentleman on your right is at a Ghanaian independence celebration, and kente cloth comes from the Akan people of Ghana, and was a traditional sign of royalty. And on the left, at Morehouse College, this young graduate is also wearing colors that relate to kente, but which talk about another kind of status. And so African American body arts include many things: the design and construction of clothing, hair and headwear, jewelry, cosmetics, and other arts applied to the body by trained self-taught artisans skilled in these traditions. Dress artists have historically been political and social activists as well. Elizabeth Keckley on the left was designer and confidant of President Lincoln's wife. Madame C.J. Walker was often thought of as one of the first African-American millionaires, and Rosa Parks was also, in addition to a civil rights activist, she was also a dressmaker. Social dress and adornment are community-based performance art forms, and I'm sure that throughout the presentations we'll be seeing other forms of performance. So the Will To Adorn is a multi-partnered collaborative project, and we'll be hearing from many of the people involved today. And the interviews represent many communities and styles. And rather than, we have more than 7 major U.S. cities, and we started with 7 major cities and the U.S. Virgin Islands. But in addition to Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit, New Orleans, New York, Oakland, California, Washington, D.C., and we also will be hearing from folks in Providence, Rhode Island, and Cleveland, Ohio. Researchers have found members of different communities through previous knowledge, through referrals, through encounters at community events like Yard Fest, where these researchers who are in Washington, D.C. are interviewing people at the annual Howard University Homecoming. And research partnerships have also been done with many community organizations and cultural institutions, like this one, America's Islamic Heritage Museum. We've also had many exchanges between artists and story sharing. This one is in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Sally Vanderwater coordinated this one. Do you have anything to say about that, Sally?
Well, this was a great research trip. Here you can see us here in a shop in St. Croix, the U.S. Virgin Islands. Here we have Janua Moja, who is one of the artists presenting at this summer's 2013 Smithsonian Folklife Festival. Over here on the right, we have Alfred Haynes, who is another artist who presented. He's a carnival costume creator. Right here in the center here, you see Jade Banks, who you'll be hearing from in just a little while. She's a youth coordinator from Mind Builders Creative Arts Center in the Bronx, New York City, and Ms. Joan Seeley, and a number of other fine artists here, and including Yamaya Jones here sneaking in the back. And this is a chance for all the artists to meet together, talk about their own experiences, and really present their own work to each other as artisans of style and as exemplars of style as well for the project.
Great. So connecting to the Will To Adorn research project through social media is a key to this multi-partnered collaborative project. This is the way that we all meet online and are able to talk. And through time, this community has widened through many connections. And the results of this research have been the identification of artists, a body of rich relationships, and documentation of artists and presentations, and exchange at the Smithsonian Folklife Festival, including at all these presentations. There's Camila Bryce Laporte interviewing a milliner at the Will To Adorn program. And she'll be talking more about her work with the Mustard Seed Ministry. And there's also a research app that allows everyone, if you have an iOS phone or tablet, you can do short interviews through using our app. You can add a story or you can listen to a story. And our questions allow for stories and comments on dress and identity. So there's not one authentic African American aesthetic, but many diverse populations and communities of expression, and individuals communicate their definitions of themselves and their communities through cultural markers that are influenced by a myriad of factors. Is there something, such a thing as African American style and dress? So we'll be hearing more about this as we go along. And I'm going to turn it over to Sally Vanderwater, who is who's been not only a researcher on the project, but was also the coordinator of the Youth Access Project at the Smithsonian. Sally?
Great. Thank you so much, Diana. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sally Vanderwater, and I'm the program coordinator for the Youth Access Program. And so as you can see, this project has been going on for a little over 3 years. We've been doing a phenomenal amount of research in great cities all over the country. We have been partnering the last several years with a couple of organizations that piloted a youth access program for us. One is Mind Builders Creative Arts Center in the Bronx, New York City, and the other is McLaren High School in Atlanta, Georgia. And both of these organizations worked in different ways to establish a youth internship program working with teens and high school students and some early college students to do some of this research in their own communities. Right here you see the work of Mind Builders. And as Diana mentioned in her introduction, everyone who participates in this program does a sartorial autobiography, which is their own story of how and why they dress the way that they do. So Mind Builders and McLaren piloted this program, and through the generous funding of the Smithsonian Youth Access Program, which is a program that's designed to take the resources and programming of the Smithsonian beyond our walls, beyond Washington, D.C., we were able to then expand this program in this calendar year, in 2013, and bring on 7 additional site partners. And they've been doing a combination of research techniques and their own knowledge of their own communities to do additional research for this program. And in 2013, we've had, as I mentioned, 9 sites in the cities you see on your left: Atlanta, Baltimore, Chicago, Cleveland, New Orleans, New York City, San Francisco, Providence, and Washington, D.C., rather than the Metro D.C. area really here. And we have a really fantastic combination of types of youth organizations. It includes, kind of your standard K through 12 classroom setting, primarily middle school and high school students. We also have after-school programs for middle school and high school students. Also working with community arts organizations, and some organizations are doing kind of man-on-the-street interviews, just kind of talking with people and doing more impromptu field work. The way that we began this program, here you see some photos of some of our youth interns from the summer. You'll be hearing from those folks later this afternoon too. To get folks started, what we did, we invited our site partners. We did the research to find out who we're going to partner with, and we invited them to come to the Smithsonian Folklife Festival this summer. Now, this happened because the Will to Adorn, as Diana mentioned, was a key focus of the Folklife Festival. So we invited them to come to the festival and participate in a really intensive 2-day workshop where they discussed curriculum and interviewing techniques and documentation techniques, filming techniques, all kinds of hands-on activities, and draft lesson plans and a curriculum guide, and then they were able to participate in the rest in the second week of the festival. The festival is a two-week festival, and so here you see some of our fantastic interns at work and being goofy. And we'll see, and then we participate in a number of ways, including doing some on-site interviews with some of the artists. Here you see Edmund Asante from Mind Builders interviewing Sofan, who was a hair braider at the festival. And they also participated in, here's all of our interns on the final day of the festival. Here we have Darius, Diane, Gerald, Edmund, Soini, James, and me, all 12 of us talking about their experiences being part of the Will to Adorn program and the ways that, and for most of these folks, they've been involved in the program at least 2 years. In all cases, they've been involved in the program at least 1 full year before this photo was taken in July. Here's another great photo. I just love this group shot of a bunch of us, including on the left here, you see a photo of Kanaya Nicole, who's one of our photographers and an artist, one of the original B-Girls from Harlem who was able to come to the festival. And I'm going to give a shout out here to Azza Isufu, who's a long-time Smithsonian Center for Folklife and Cultural intern here at the festival, and as well as Gerald, Edmund, and Diane here, who participated in the festival. Now, in addition to the work that you're going to hear about in the afternoon today, there's more great work happening all over the country. In Atlanta, McLaren and Fulton County Schools are working on film and language arts programs associated with Will to Adorn. The American Friends Service Committee and Friend of a Friend program is doing man-on-the-street interviews. God's Gang in Chicago, which is primarily an urban agriculture group, is actually also doing some great field work with other communities of style in Chicago. And the Museum of the African Diaspora in San Francisco has done over the summer, and will again in January do a great program called Girls Behind the Lens, working with middle school girls to have them develop filmmaking techniques and talking about their own experiences. We have also, as part of this program, developed an educational curriculum, as we mentioned earlier. If you're interested in receiving a draft copy of this educational curriculum, and we have copies for both educators and for students, please let us know. I will drop my email address into the chat box there, and you can contact me with any questions you have about the Youth Access Program or about gaining a copy of the curriculum when it's available. Thank you very much, and I know that we have, I think, a few minutes for questions, and then we'll have a quick break, and we'll hear from Jade Banks and the folks at Mind Builders.
Wonderful. Yeah, so if there are any questions, please feel free to type those in the questions or comments box there on the left side of the screen. And I do see one question that's come in already asking, if I'm not already involved in the Will to Adorn program, how can I become a part of this?
Okay, well, first of all, you can send us an email, and well, the very first thing you can do, if you happen to be able to get access to an iOS device, you can download the app, and you can tell us your own cultural autobiography, but you can also contact us with the email that Sally has just put on the screen, and we will talk to you about getting on our research site.
And I do want to point out too that Ashley was kind enough to drop the web address for the app into the chat box. So if you just missed it, you can scroll up and see that. You can also search for the app in the iTunes store. It's one little tip, though. If you're on an iPad and looking for it, you need to look into the iPhone apps. Sometimes you can't find it if you're looking only in iPad apps, but if you look in iPhone apps, the Will to Adorn will pop up as a free app that you can download and get using.
And we'll be in the future sort of expanding ways to get that app too. But the other thing, I saw a little bit further on a question about the kente, and the question was from Diane. Hi, Diane. And she asked, well, aren't there different symbolism? Isn't there different symbolism attached to the colors of kente? And you're quite right. Both the patterns of kente and the colors have many symbols attached to them that were traditional within the Akan community and among Akan weavers. And it's really interesting how in the expanding use of kente, there's a lot of discussion about whether it's okay to have kente prints where people don't know the meaning of these prints. So kente is both a symbol of Akan identity, but also of, in some cases, African American identity or African descendant identity. Okay, is there any other questions? I think that's it.
Thank you all very much, and stay tuned. We'll be starting very soon with Jade Banks and the folks from Mind Builders Creative Arts Center and the Dr. Beverly J. Robinson Community Folk Culture Program in New York City.